Hey everyone, and welcome to this session of AskCody On-Air. Today we have a bit of a different session because it is a pre-recorded conversation that I had with my colleague Cecilia about the steps that organizations should follow for a successful AskCody implementation. Even though it is a pre-recorded session, I will be here to answer your questions, if any. And yeah, let's just get started. Today, I have my colleague Cecilia here, and we're going to be talking about the successful steps that one should take into account when implementing a software platform like AskCody, a software platform that perhaps involves the workflow of many employees in the organization, and that it takes some planning to implement. Remember that you can always ask your questions at the top right corner of the webinar window, or just simply write them in the chat, and then we'll answer them for you. Without further ado, Cecilia, would you please introduce yourself?
Of course. My name is Cecilia, and I have been working for almost 10 years at AskCody, working with implementation, writing content, user adoption. So yeah, let's talk about it.
Great. Thank you for that. And as we said, today we're going to talk about implementing a platform like AskCody. So first off, well, I'm going to ask you, Cecilia, straight away because I work at an organization, and then my organization decided to go for AskCody. AskCody is the right platform for me to use. Where do I start? What steps do I take into account, and can I do it on my own? Where do I start?
Yeah, that's a very good question. When you're implementing like a big software platform, there are a lot of different steps to take into consideration. You have a lot of different people, departments at your organization that will be involved in this, especially if you plan to implement AskCody, the platform. We have a touch point in like almost every department. So how do you implement software like that? I'm going to take you a little bit through some of the steps that we have, because we have come up in AskCody, we have come up with like a model of how you can create a successful implementation of software. And it has like 4 phases. In it has like a plan and prepare phase, set up and configure. It has a test and deployment, and a training and support steps or phases. And under each phase, we have like a lot of different steps. And if we take a look at the plan and prepare phase, because that is actually very, very important. And I think some organizations maybe forget how to plan and prepare for such an implementation.
Yeah, it's not something you just jump into straight away, right? It's something that requires a little bit more planning.
Yes, it really requires a lot of planning and setting the right team. Well, let's say if we dive a little bit into what we have in our model, because we have in the plan and prepare phase, it is very, very important at the first, as you start organizing your team, having the right team members in your project team is crucial to getting both the implementation of the platform successful, but also if you're looking at like user adoption. Yeah, I'll come a little bit into that later.
Right,
but if we look at the team, okay, so which roles do we actually have in such a team that is important for a successful implementation? Well, in like what we recommend, we actually have 12 different types of role. That may sound like a lot, but they are all very important. So we have, of course, recommend to have like a project manager for the whole implementation. It doesn't have to be like a technical resource or anything, but someone that is really, really good at keeping sure that you're having the right process, involving the right people at the right time. In AskCody, we also have like an implementation plan, like with a lot of steps.
Yeah. That is something our customer experience team follows through with customers as well.
Yes,
to reach out different milestones and then make sure that implementations go through carried successful.
Yeah, exactly. And that is also tailored for that specific company. so it match exactly what you want to go through.
All right.
But the first is definitely to set the right team. So who is in that? That is the project manager, as we just covered. You also need the system owner. These are not these doesn't have to be the same person. It might sound like the same person, but the system owner is the one that is owning the AskCody software and platform after it is going live. You also need to have an exchange app, because you're going to have a lot of integrations and such. So having that person,
someone with like elevated access to the IT infrastructure of the organization.
Yes.
So when they do an integration, for example, with AskCody, synchronizing calendars, synchronizing users,
exactly.
then it needs to be this, highly technically skilled and person with access to the right organizational information within Exchange. So
Yeah, and at some point in the very early start of the setup and configure phase, you need also to have like the global Exchange admin access. You need to have that person that has the big boy pants on in the back end, because we need some access to that. But that is, everything is explained when to use which people in like the project plan.
Right.
Yeah. A facility manager, and because we need to know a lot of what is going on inside of each of your meeting rooms, for example. So it's kind of having all of the different like super users of each of the different parts of the platform or which we touch. Could also be a PA, front desk, service management, IT and support. Yeah.
Yeah, so basically a lot of hats is what we're seeing here. As you say, 12 different roles.
Yes.
And it may be that implementing a platform like this can sound a bit overwhelming, but it doesn't necessarily need to be.
No. Definitely not. Having like the super users in the beginning of the process is actually crucial, and I think that is one of the points that many implementation projects miss.
Mm-hmm.
Having those specific super users at the beginning of the process helps out the whole implementation, because you will get those inputs. Most of them might also have been in the process of choosing that platform or choosing that software product that they want, but having them also like fine-tuning how to use it. Also, when we are talking about mapping out the meeting journey, in our case, and AskCody, it is crucial to get an idea about how you are, or how the meeting, each touch point of a meeting. That's what I would say. So having those people involved from the beginning is very, very important, but also for the adoption later on. So they have been a part of every single step of that process. Will also help them like put on like the very special hat of knowing everything, so that they can also help teaching the others in their departments.
All right. But then I have a question, because then what about end users? Because of course we involve admins, we involve people with the right level of access to information in the platforms. We involve, for example, you mentioned PAs, personal assistants, is people that manage their own schedule, of course, but has access to, let's say, different levels and different parts of their organization's IT infrastructure up to some level. But end users, for example, when do we start involving end users? Because you mentioned something about user adoption in the beginning, and that is of course a crucial part, because of course it needs to be taken care of in implementation. But how do I make sure that it's not by my boss told me to use this this program, so I'm going to use it, but instead we kind of can create excitement within end user, and then make it easy for them to, of course it makes sense that I need to do this, so I press here and that happens. How do we reach that point?
That is a very, very good question, and also a very difficult question to answer, because it can of course differ from project to project, but there are some like steps and things to consider when you're creating a good user adoption
Yeah.
in such an implementation as this one. But it is definitely to not have set up the whole system, the whole process, and then just sending out one email to all users saying, hey, from this date, you're going to use this, go do, or maybe just have like a small how-to guide that doesn't work.
Yeah.
That's not how you do it properly. It is something where you go into each department, actually, maybe each office, or how, depending on how big of an organization you have, and then identifying who is like most likely to adopt software. It's not like you as a project manager or a trainer can go in and identify those. So talking to like each of their managers or something to identify these people. Because having someone on board from a very early stage create like ownership.
Yeah.
And that will affect the other persons in that office. That is one way. But we have like a whole webinar and a whole like part of the whole implementation process mapped out, explaining exactly how you can do this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because you mentioned this meeting journey mapping as well, right? And that, would you put some words on specifically what that is and how does it look like and what is it that we map in that meeting journey?
Exactly. So if we just like go a little bit back, we have like the plan and prepare phase, and in that we have set the right team. We have those 12 like very crucial roles to fulfill, and then you also need in that phase to have like the meeting journey map. And it is very important to map out what is the process, what is each of the touch point of a meeting that you have in your current process. To map that out very specifically, who's involved, what does the process look like now, but also when you implement the AskCody platform, how does it then look? How do you want it to look?
Mm-hmm.
And that's also tied together with one of the other steps in the plan and prepare phase, to set like realistic goals and define what is the success criteria actually, and how do we want to measure, what metrics do we want for this implementation. So identifying each steps of the meeting journey and who's involved and when, it's very, very important. And if you're implementing like the AskCody platform, that is something that we will have like a whole workshop helping you do.
Right, because it's different for every organization, right?
It is different for every organization, and you can't just pull something over their heads or anything.
And we have these 12 roles here that that can differ according to the organizational side, right? It can be that one person has 3 roles and then another one has only 1, right?
Yes.
But then I guess it can change. And also about that meeting journey, it's also important to take into consideration that, what we do at AskCody is, of course, help organization manage meetings smarter. So it's all about the meeting and the meeting life cycle. It's quite long, right? It has different stages. It has the scheduling phase. It has the how can we call it, the last minute changing phase in a way where we make sure that everything needs to be in place for the meeting. That is there any service request associated to it? We better make sure it gets delivered to the right place on the right time. In case there is something that needs to be aligned, there's also something we need to take into consideration. If it's a physical meeting, well, are there any visitors? Are there any externals that are coming, right?
Yes.
And the more we add to it, the more people we add, and the more responsibilities we add to the meeting. So there's, of course, a lot that we need to do. So that's what we do in the meeting journey mapping as well. To map these responsibilities as well.
It can also be that if it's not like AskCody platform you're implementing and all about the meeting, but it can also be some other software platform that it is very important to identify which steps do we have now, what works well, what doesn't work well, what is it that we want to change, and then create the new mapping of the process after the implementation
Yes.
Has been implemented.
Yeah. All right. So basically, just to kind of zoom out a little bit, and then center on the steps that you mentioned in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
So the plan and prepare phase, that's all about alignment. It's all about communication. It's getting the right team together. It's setting the right goals. Setting, measuring how do I look right now? How do I want to look post implementation?
Exactly.
And therefore, can I say, well, am I successful? Am I not successful? And then I can just measure. Well, if I was successful, great. Let's repeat the success.
Yes.
And if not, then there's something, of course, that we can measure and then see. Well,
exactly.
Was it on our side? Do we need more training? Is this just a complex feature to explain and all that?
And that is also why it is created as a wheel, because it is a never-ending like story of this, because it is a software product, and software as a service keeps adding on new features, new developments that needs to be adopted as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Some of the next talks we're gonna have, we're gonna dive a little bit more into like adoption.
Yeah.
And what kind of actual materials that we have for that.
Yeah, definitely, and I think there's something that hopefully most of you will find relevant, because when you buy a software like AskCody, what you do is that typically you use it in different locations as well. So for organizations with multiple locations for multiple offices, well, they will likely use AskCody across the organizations, and then whenever a new location starts using it, it's a whole new introduction and implementation process where there's one office that perhaps has implemented it successfully, but then we need to repeat that success in the new office, which has its own culture, which has its own behavior and its own tech stack as well. So there's a lot of variables there.
Yes.
But that is of course part of the user adoption talks.
Yep.
But
looking forward to that.
Yes. Yes. But I think that wraps up what we have for today. If you have any questions as well, we'll check in the chat section or in the question section.
And we will also provide all of the links so that you can see and read about what we have talked about today.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll follow up with those materials as well. But yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cecilia.
You're welcome.
All right, that wraps up the session for today. Thank you for those of you who joined. If you couldn't make it, that's all right, because we will still share this recording as we do with the rest. Now we're also publishing them in our help center, making the sessions a lot more accessible to all of you. As I see right now, there's no questions from the audience, but that's absolutely all right. As usual, you're always welcome to contact us and keep in touch. Let me just make sure I'm sharing the right tab here. Here we go. Great. Make sure to keep in touch. You can find us in the AskCody community by scanning the QR code shown on the screen, or by searching AskCody community on LinkedIn. And you are always more than welcome to reach out to me directly at the email shown on the screen, in case you have any feedback about these sessions, or if you would like us to take on any specific topics of your choosing. That's it. Thank you very much again for joining, and have a great day.